Hi all, let's continue with lecture 12 on medically important bacteria. So in this lecture we will focus on gram-positive bacilli, or also known as gram-positive rods. So gram-positive rods can be divided into spore formers and non-spore formers. So the spore formers can be further divided based on their aerobic or facultative anaerobic property. And one of the important genus from these spore formers is Bacillus. And on the other hand, the other cluster is obligate anaerobe. The important genus is Clostridium. When it comes to the non-spore formers, you can divide based on their regular shape and staining properties. And then another one is the irregular shape and different staining properties. And these are the important genera for regular shape. And then for the irregular shape and staining property can be divided into non-acid fast, acid fast, and filamentous and branching cells. And these are the important genera we will go through in the lecture. Okay, let's start with the gram-positive irregular non-spore forming bacilli. So as the name mentioned, it is irregular, pleomorphic, and stained unevenly. And these are the important genera for this cluster. Okay, let's start with Corynebacterium. So Corynebacterium frequently show a club-shaped swelling. If you see the picture here, the purplish color, the balls, that is we call as a club. Okay, they are aerobic and non-spore forming bacteria. And Corynebacterium Diphtheria is one of the important member of this genus, and this bacteria also known as a Klebsiella bacilli, and the disease it causes is diphtheria. Sometimes this bacteria also known as a diphtheriotes, and it is a common cells of nose, throat, nasopharynx, skin, urinary tract, and conjunctiva. Okay, let's look at the disease that caused by Corynebacterium diphtheria, and the disease is known as a diphtheria. So the symptoms of diphtheria including a thick gray membrane covering your throat and tonsils, and also is present with a sore throat and hoarseness, and also it comes with a swollen glands, which is an enlargement of lymph nodes in your neck, such as this bit, like as shown in this picture here, and also is lead to a difficulty of breathing or rapid breathing, and it present with a nasal discharge, fever, and chills. And this disease also causes malaise, and usually the children and adults who don't have vaccinated will have a high risk of getting diphtheria, and also is people living in a crowded or unsanitary conditions have a high risk of getting diphtheria. Other than that, anyone who travels through the area where diphtheria is endemic, then they stand a high chance of infected with diphtheria. So the following genus is genus Propionibacterium. So it is also known as a Actinibacterium or pimples bacterium. So one of the member of this genus is Propionibacterium acnes, which is the most commonly present in your sebaceous glands. And it is air tolerant and anaerobic, and they are non-toxigenic, and as I mentioned before, it causes acne. Okay, the following genus is Mycobacteria. So the Mycobacteria consisting of gram-positive irregular bacilli. So usually you need to do a acid fast staining to see them under microscope. So this is the image when you see under microscope. So usually they stain red. Even though they stain red, we still cluster them as a gram-positive. So they are obligate aerobes, and then they have like a thick waxy cell wall, and they do not form capsules, flagella, and spores. And then they have like a very slow growing rate, which is about 14 to 15 hours generation time. So let's briefly look at the virulence factor of Mycobacteria. Mycobacteria produces no exotoxins or enzymes that contribute to infectiousness. But on the other hand, they contain a body, waxes, and glycolipid molecule called a coat factor. So this coat factor prevents destruction by lysosomes or macrophages by the host cells. Okay, one of the prominent member of genus Mycobacteria is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It causes tuberculosis. So the symptoms of tuberculosis including coughing that lasts 3 or more weeks, and also it comes with coughing of blood, chest pain or pain with breathing or coughing, and unintentional weight loss, fatigue, fever, night sweats, chills, and loss of appetite. So these are the symptoms of tuberculosis. Okay, genus Actinomyces. So general Actinomyces and Nocardia are non-motile filamentous bacteria related to Mycobacteria. And then Actinomyces similar in appearance with Nocardia, but they are obligate anaerobes. So it may cause chronic infection of skin and soft tissues. And the Actinomyces is really one of the member of genus Actinomyces, which is responsible for disease of the oral cavity, thoracic or intestine. So for instance, swelling here is caused by Actinomyces. bacteria. But on the other hand, Nocardia group of organisms are aerobic, branching and partially acid-fast and weak gram staining. So we'll look something like this under microscope after staining. So Nocardia are found worldwide in soil that is rich with organic matter. And Nocardia also are oral microflora, so which can be found in your mouth area. So most Nocardia infections are acquired by inhalation of the bacteria or through traumatic introduction. So traumatic means forcefully introduced in your skin, or it can be any of your body. One of the important member of Nocardia is Nocardia brasiliensis, which causes a pulmonary disease which is quite similar to TB, but then it called a Nocardiosis. So let's briefly look at the disease Nocardiosis. So Nocardiosis, if it's present in the lungs, we call as a pulmonary nocardiosis. So the symptoms of pulmonary nocardiosis including chest pain when breathing, which may occur suddenly or slowly, and it also comes with a coughing of blood, fevers, night sweats and weight loss. And the nocardiosis also can happen in your brain, which is known as a cerebral nocardiosis, and the symptoms are fever, headache and seizures. And apart from them, some people with nocardiosis have no symptoms, they become asymptomatic. Okay, we are done with the gram-positive bacilli. Let's move on to the gram-positive cocci. So the gram-positive cocci can be divided into Staphylococcus or Streptococcus. So as we learned in the previous lectures, if it's a Staphylococcus, which they present as a clusters. If they're Streptococcus, they present as pairs or chains. So usually a gram-positive cocci can be divided into Staphylococcus and Streptococcus based on Catalase test. So Catalase test is done by placing a drop of hydrogen peroxide on the microscope slide. And if you look further, so Staphylococcus can be further divided into a hemolytic and non-hemolytic. So using a Coagulase testing. So Coagulase test is used to differentiate between Staphylococcus aureus, which is positive Coagulase, and Coagulase negative Staphylococcus. So Coagulase is an enzyme produced by Staphylococcus aureus that converts soluble fibrogen in plasma to insoluble fibrin. So later we will have a video, so please watch that video. And on the other hand, Streptococcus can be further divided into beta, alpha, gamma based on hemolysis testing. So hemolysis is a breakdown of red blood cells. So out of these three, beta is the most pathogenic Streptococcus.
To perform the Catalase test, place a clean glass slide on the lab bench. Take a bottle of hydrogen peroxide and place 2 small separate drops on the slide. Using a sterile wooden stick, pick up a colony of Staphylococcus epidermidis and swirl it in the drop. If bubbles appear, the organism is catalase positive. We will show this up closer in a second to get a better view. Next, do the same thing, only this time use Streptococcus mitis. You will notice this time that no bubbles should form. Let's take a closer look. First, we will add our Staphylococcus epidermidis. Notice the bubbles forming? Next comes the Streptococcus mitis. You notice again that no bubbles form, indicating that this organism is catalase negative.
The Coagulase test differentiates between Coagulase positive staph, also called Staph aureus, and Coagulase negative staph, also known as Staph epidermidis. And you use a drop of rabbit coagulase plasma and you touch the center of the colony. If the organism is coagulase positive, you're going to get a clumping when you add the organism to the reagent. The organism will not make a nice smooth suspension. It will stay clumpy. Looks clumpy. So this organism is Staph aureus. Staph epidermidis is coagulase negative. And goes into a smooth suspension when you add it to the reagent. No clumping noted.
It's very smooth.
Okay, let's look at the general features or characteristic of Staphylococci. So Staphylococci, they form a grape-like cluster. They are non-motile, do not form endospore, and all members produce catalase, so therefore they are catalase positive, and all members are aerobic and facultative anaerobic, and they are quite resistant to heat, desiccation, and chemicals, and many are resistant to penicillin antibiotic, and some are normal flora of human skin, especially the coagulase negative. Okay, most common diseases that are caused by Staphylococci are including skin infections, which is such as folliculitis and cellulitis, as shown here, and then and other than that, it also can cause skin abscesses and wound infections. And some of the serious diseases caused by Staphylococcus are bronchopneumonia and pulmonary cerebral and renal abscess. And usually the one that pathogenic, they are coagulase positive, and the coagulase negative, they are non-pathogenic. So next is the genus Streptococci. So probably Streptococci causing more diseases than any other group of bacteria. They typically appear in chain of cocci as shown here and here, and then they are non-motile, and then they will not produce endospore, and then they also do not produce catalase, so therefore they are catalase negative, and grow best in the absence of oxygen. And some of the members of Streptococcus also encapsulated, and for example Streptococcus pneumonia, and then they are sensitive to penicillin antibiotic. And apart from that, some of them are normal flora of skin and mucous membrane in human. A few examples of diseases caused by Streptococci including Streptococcus throat, which is a throat infection, and neonatal meningitis, which is a disease transmitted from mother to the baby during passage from birth canal.